horsepower. It's got, this one's going to be replaced.
Oh, hi there.
It tells you how much oil you've got, what the test pressures are. Some of them are a lot more extensive than that. I can work for a local workspace guy's number is. Numbers. They'll even give you Mark's number if they really feel weak, so he gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Love that.
That's further in the room, I think.
Okay. So this is just the entrance. So we come into the vestibule. Oh, one thing I would say, we've got the shower wash, the shower and eye wash. There was nowhere to put it in here, so they got special sanction to put it in that room over there. That door's kept unlocked, you see you can't even lock it. So that's where the shower and the eye wash are. If you want to look at those, open the door. When we come into this vestibule, this is where you've got pretty well everything sitting there. In this case, it's also one of the main electrical distribution areas, so these are the big breakers serving various bits and pieces around the facility. Up there we have an emergency refrigeration shutdown. You see the top switch. If you're ever going to shut the plant down, hit the big red switch. Works wonderfully. The exhaust fan startup is on the green button just below it. I can't read what that one was.
Behind the paper.
Oh, that's the actual arena fans. So you can shut those down. We have a nice case with some masks, and I think we've got some more around there, if I remember rightly. So everybody here is fitted, that is approved to go into the compressor room in the event of an emergency. I don't know, what are you limited to, Mark? Do you know?
Parts per million?
Yeah. Is it 35?
35, yeah.
Yeah. So once it goes over 35, the employees don't go in there. The refrigeration tech can probably go in there up to 300 if they approve that. Failing that, we've got to get the hazmat group to come in and do it. That might be the fire department, it might be a special hazmat group. Just depends on where you are and what they're doing. Here we have a very important little bit of equipment. This is our ammonia detector. This detects the gas inside the compressor room, and also there's a third sensor now that detects the gas in the relief stack. Although that now goes into a water tank, so it's a little bit different. It's the only one like that, nowhere else, well, other than Moody Park. New West is the only way like that. So that's the ammonia detector. So one of the things that you should be doing is you walk in here, you pick up your mask, whatever kind it is. The ones around the back here are just the bite type. You just bite them, and they're escape respirators exclusively. You look at here and make sure that these are all nice and zero, or close enough to zero, not to worry about. Then you can go in the compressor room. Yeah. That door out there is normally kept locked. This one, sometimes you do. Mostly, I suppose.
Yeah. It's shut.
Yeah, it's shut. It's going to have a nice lot of gasketing on there. You can see that it's got gaskets. I'm not sure what's underneath, but this door has got to be basically gas proof. This whole area, believe it or not, this wood does have a 1-hour fire rating. It always fascinates me that wood, you can get a fire rating with wood, but it is. And you can see what I was talking about on Monday, I think it was, where you got 2x4s or 2x6s on edge, all bashed together to make this building. It's an amazing building, but then again, when was it built? 1932? Six. Hell of a long time ago. So it's got some information here, who does the service, and various bits of other things. I see you've taken down your certificates.
Yeah, we have to make room for the new breakers, so we'll be setting a spot up for those.
You don't have to mount them anymore,
Nope.
as long as they're readily available.
Okay.
Either there's a paper copy, so
Yeah.
you could put a file
Put it
here,
in a book. File it
or
up.
you could put them on your computer in the other room. As long as if the inspector says, I want to see your certificates, no problem.
Yeah.
There it is.
Perfect.
Yep. So, we're now ready to go into the compressor room. Please don't fall down the steps.
So it's okay. Yeah.
Do bear in mind, we are under construction here, so, just keep your wits about you, don't do anything silly. Like tripping over. It's pretty tidy, but it's, never perfect. So, what I usually do with this thing is I just sort of take it from the compressors. That's the easiest way, in my opinion, to sort of do it. So, we have two compressors. Horsepower. 75. Okay. So this is a 75 horsepower. That one's probably a 50. These are those new super efficient M machines that Micon make, and are absolutely fantastic. 2 cylinders. So this is a 4-cylinder machine. 2 cylinders under each head. They're about a 5-inch piston with about a 4-inch stroke. You have an oil cooler sitting down here. When you walk round, you can walk around and have a look at this thing. This is just a microprocessor, it's not fired up, so you're not going to see anything other than the little box, but it's got a screen on there, and that can display all of the operating parameters of that compressor. And you can see that you've got those electrical things sticking in the valves there. You've got a transducer on the head, and there's several other places around the compressor that is going to feed information into here: suction pressures, discharge pressures, oil pressures, etc. So that this is both your safety controls, don't even show them anymore, can you? And also the operating control if it's chosen to do that well. So, unfortunately, I can't use the old adage that says if it's uninsulated, it's discharge, and if it's insulated, because none of this is insulated yet. So I'll have to just work on the principle that this is the discharge. This thing up here, that's the oil separator. Okay? So as it comes, as we send the discharge gas up the pipe here, it gets to here, comes in here, swirls around a bit, goes through the coalescer filter, and then goes out over here. So that's the oil separator, this bit. The next thing afterwards, can anybody remember what I said? What's the next thing after the oil separator? One on each of them. You've got that one.
Wow.
It's called a check valve, okay, or a non-return valve. And what that thing does, I'll do this one, it's easier to point to. It allows the gas flow to go that way, but it cannot come back again. So if you've got this machine running, it's going to put gas into this pipe going along there. And if it didn't have that thing, then that gas could just go straight back into this oil separator, condense, and then drop back down into the compressor. We don't want that to happen. So that's why we put the check valve in there. The second is a shut-off valve, and we'll look at those tomorrow morning. Shut-off valves, as I think I told you, they're all globe valves. We don't use any other kind of valve as a shut-off valve on these systems. So, it's come out of the compressors. The other thing you've got on the compressor, you've got that red one, which is the relief valve. That's the second stage, the final stage of of the safety of this compressor. So firstly, we've got the pressure controls, which should shut the compressor down. But if they don't for any reason, then that is the last thing that's going to happen. That's going to relieve atmosphere. Or in this case, as I say, that heaving great tank behind there, that's where all the reliefs go into in this very, very unusual place. I think it's safe. I think the ammonia should go outside and feed the grass and the trees. And it's a wonderful, yeah, it's a wonderful fertilizer. But anyway, it doesn't, so not in this plant. There isn't another one of those, by the way, anywhere in any ring except Dawson Creek. Oh, Marie, New Westminster. So here we have the belt guard. This is not a bag belt guard because at least you can see through it. You can't get your finger through it. That's if you can get down to your first knuckle joint, then the holes are too big. You must not be able to get past that point. But you can look in there, you can see the pulley at this end, the flywheel at that end, and that'll get lined up and run on. So you can also check the condition of the belts fairly easily. And you've got good views from the other side as well. This is the electric motor. It's an all cast iron frame, but it is it's a TFC motor. Oh, that's pretty good. That's not. It is an open trip motor. So this is what we typically do put on compressors because there's virtually no probability of this getting wet. It would really be odd if it did. Whereas over there we have a brine pump, and that can easily get wet. So it comes out of here. This is our main discharge line coming along here. And up here we have, again, becoming more common, but still fairly unusual, we have a plate and frame condenser. And what that's going to do is our ammonia is going to go in to the ones that are already piped on this side. So it's going to go into hot gas up the top, up here, and it's going to come out here as a cool liquid. And that is then going to carry on. This fluid here, I'm honestly not quite sure what they're doing with that. I know it's going out to that thing that they were installing this morning. But usually when we use one of these, we're going to do some heat reclaim with it and put the heat into something. But I can't see any other pipes going anywhere.
So we have a heat recovery system here for our water.
Yeah, that's off these connections though, isn't it?
That's right. This is going to be a glycol loop. That's why we want the fluid outside. So that would be glycol through those lines to cool down.
So you're not going to do anything with all that heat that you're picking up out of the condenser? Well, that just uses the hot gas. It doesn't use any of this heat. Ironically, you've got.
We're still learning ourselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of heat there, but you can do a lot with. Actually, the best place you could use it is probably the snow mill.
It would be nice.
Just run a pipe out there, put some pipes in the bottom of the snow mill.
Yeah. In the bottom, sure.
There's enough heat there to do that. It'll probably give you enough heat right the way across the back of this building.
Yeah, fill up the zone money with
So, you know, but you've got to have somewhere you get it from, and at the moment there isn't anywhere. But you know, that's what I was getting at. Usually you don't pay for one of these because they're pretty expensive. If you can't, if you're not going to do anything with it. But anyway, so there's the condenser. Got all the right bits. It's got a relief valves up the top. So it comes down here. This is a trap. So we make sure that we've got good liquid flow along here. This, if you'd like to, yeah. So the liquid just goes straight through on that top pipe under normal operation. That's what normally happens. But we also have this thing here, which is a high pressure receiver. And when this plant is shut down, we shut that one and we open these two and we pump the ammonia into this for storage during shutdown. That's really what it's there for. That's the only thing it's there for. Yeah? This plant has got steadily smaller in terms of the amounts of ammonia. It's quite interesting really, because it started off as 800 or something like that.
150, yeah.
Then when they changed the chiller out, and that's a new chiller over in the corner, it dropped down to 250 or something like that.
Yeah.
And now that we've got rid of the big old condensers outside, it's probably dropping down to 100 or maybe even less than that. So, you know, we've got a lot less ammonia in this system, which, the less ammonia, the less the hazard. So that's just a high pressure receiver. On the end, it's a little difficult to see, but if you peek down there, that's called a sight glass. It's a reflex glass. That tells you whether there's any ammonia in there. Generally speaking, if you're looking into a sight glass of any form, if it's black in the glass, that's liquid ammonia. If it's that grey colour like this one is, that's either gas or nothing at all. Yeah. So that's the way it goes. So anyway, our ammonia is going on now over to the low side. It's still, if you look at the science, it's high pressure liquid. So it is liquid, it's high pressure, it's ammonia, and it's going that way. Yeah. So you can always pick up where you are on these things by looking at the symbols. So we're going around here. Now this is the bit that gets a little complicated, but this is effectively the expansion valve station. This was put in last year, and what you have is this is called a valve block, and it's got 5 different functions in there, or maybe 6. Just all mounted in a block, so it's really quick and easy to install. So, you know, you've got a shut-off valve, you've got a strainer, you've got a solenoid valve, you've got another shut-off valve. This is the expansion valve, actually. It's an electronic expansion valve. Really smart stuff. Works well with these things. And then you've got another shut-off valve here, and off we go. And you can see now my philosophy works, because here we are low pressure, because we went through the expansion valve, and it's insulated. So when it's low pressure, low temperature, it's insulated. High pressure. This is the hand expansion valve as a bypass. So if anything here breaks down, then you can just run it on that bypass. It is actually a critically charged system, although it's a little bit more unusual critically charged system. While I'm standing here looking at it, that bit there, that's the inlet air for that exhaust fan. So it comes in. US opted to put some filters in it so that they don't get a load of dust coming into the compressor rig. So we're now low pressure, liquid. It's liquid, it's low pressure, it's ammonia, and it's still going that way. So it comes round here, comes up in here. I suppose I probably should come around that side. And that high pressure, or that low pressure liquid, the cold stuff, is going to insert itself into this liquid circuit and make up the system. So now what we have, that surge drum up the top, that's this bit up here. That's actually the surge drum on this system. But it's also the storage for the liquid. And that is allowed to drop down into the bottom of the plate and frame. The plate and frame uses the brine to warm it up, to boil it. Actually, it doesn't warm it up, it just boils it. That goes up to the top and goes back into the surge drum, that U-bend, that U-turn thing. And there it separates from liquid to gas. The gas now comes off this connection here and goes back to the compressors. The things that actually control what happens in there, here we have what's termed a high level alarm. So if we get too much ammonia in there, I think that's the one anyway. I always get these two mixed up. Let me come around here so that I can see it. Yeah. Inside this pipe here, you have a level control, which senses what the level is in this column, and similarly, what's the level is inside the actual plate frame chiller. And that decides whether or not we're going to open that lot or not, and let any more refrigerant through. As it drops, as the liquid level drops, it senses that and opens that thing to get it going. This guy up here is just a high level alarm, so that if we do have a problem with too much refrigerant, which I don't think can happen actually in here, strictly that isn't necessary on a critical charge system. But it's there, on, it'll shut the plant down if that gets too high. And again, we have the sight glass, which fortunately we don't see any black in, but you would see black inside the gauge, inside the glass here, if there was any ammonia liquid inside. That is the expansion tank for the cold brine. Now this particular ring doesn't have any on-floor heating, so it can only run a relatively short season safely. But that's the expansion tank, and you can see where it's at, but you can also see possibly another line down there a bit further, which is where it was at during the operating season. It's now expanded a bit, and you can see a higher line on it. That's what I like people to click every now and again. Yeah. So if you come over this way now, down here. So what I've got here, remember we mentioned oil, and that the oil will tend to be taken over to the low side in an ammonia system. What we have down here, this is the oil pot. And what we do with this is that we drain the oil from somewhere or other. I think it's integral in there, it comes down here into the oil pot. That's where the gas, as it boils off, vents back and up into the system, gets rid of it. We then have, this is a relief line, so you can see RV, ammonia, and then this is the actual drain valve here. It always intrigues me, I criticise mechanics sometimes. This should be at the height that you can put a 20-litre pail under, because that's what nearly everybody uses to drain oil into. So if you made that about another 3, maybe 4 inches higher, it would be perfect. But it's there, so, and I'm sure you get around it somehow or other. The nice thing about this, Mark, if you've not known it, is that you probably won't have to drain oil for the next year.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Love it. These compressors are unbelievably efficient. They don't use much oil. So that's the oil pot. That's where we take the oil out of our system. Typically, during operation, that is frosted. It's best if you don't have more than about an inch, maybe an inch and a bit of ice on that pot. And if you keep it down to that sort of level, what will happen is, as oil builds up in the bottom of the pot, the ice will melt. But if you let it get to 2 inches of ice or something like that, then the ice doesn't melt. There's too much of it. So it just stays there, so you never really get an indication. And we have had people who say, well, our ice hasn't melted. It melts when you've got oil in it. No, it doesn't. Not when you've got 2 inches of ice. So that's the ammonia system, because it's gone back to the compressors and we're off again. We've now got the brine side. This is the chiller. This is our brine pump down here. Revolting colour, but I can't do much about that. So what we're doing is we're pulling the brine back from the rink floor. Comes into the front of the pump. It's pumped up. Somewhere underneath there is probably a filter, but I'm going to guess that there's no filter in it, because nobody ever puts one in there. Then you've got a butterfly valve there, and you've probably got another one in the inlet somewhere just down there, underneath that little stool. These are the typical types of valve that we use, and these are the ones that I'd like you to exercise. And all you've got to do is pull the lever and just boom. Yep, just move them 45 degrees. That's all you need. Just once every month or something like that, and that keeps them clear. So the brine is going to go along there, it's going to go into the chiller, come out a few degrees cooler, and go back and down and into the rink floor. Somewhere here, I believe I remember you having a relief valve on the brine. Not my brine. Quite sure. I thought Simcoe put one on, but I can't see one anymore. Yeah. This is the expansion up to the expansion tank. This pipe here that goes up to the expansion tank. So if there is any change or needs to get rid of some air, that goes up that pipe and into the expansion tank. Where's the king valve located? On this system, now, it's a good question. It's that one actually. What? That one. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's the first valve after the condenser. So that would typically be the king valve. Having said that, you could use that one. That's the one you use if you were getting rid of the ammonia into the receiver. You could also use the one over on the expansion block. Does the same thing there. But, and then that gizmo that's just been delivered this morning, held us all up. That's called a fluid cooler, and that is simply used to get rid of the heat in the same way that an evaporative condenser does. But we've got this kind of condenser, and we're going to get rid of the heat in that thing. I've never seen one of those before, and I've got to look it up tonight, because I don't know exactly how it works. I know nominally how it works, but I've never seen one before. I like the modular component, so if it's too small, you just go and buy another module, stick a bit of steel on the end, and you've got a bigger one. Love that idea. So that's sort of what we've got. It's in a non-operative situation. There's going to be an MCC goes here for controlling all the motors. They're putting a new one of those in. I hope you gave the other one to the museum. That was a classic.
Yeah.
Here's